The rain fell in thin, silver sheets the morning Father Michael arrived at St. Bridget's Parish. The church stood on a hill overlooking the small village of Glenmore, its stone walls weathered by time, its stained glass windows dim with dust. It was a place that had once been full of life but now felt hollow, like a heart that had forgotten how to beat. Father Michael stepped out of the old bus with a single suitcase and a quiet prayer on his lips. He was young, barely 30, with gentle eyes and a calmness that seemed to follow him like a soft shadow. But the moment he walked toward the church he felt it, the coldness. Not from the weather but from the people. A few villagers watched from their doorways. No one waved. No one smiled. Some turned away. They had wanted someone older. Someone familiar. Someone who reminded them of the priest they had loved for decades, Father O'Connell, who had passed away suddenly the year before. To them, Father Michael was an outsider. A replacement. A disruption. But he bowed his head, whispered, "Lord, help me love them even when they do not love me," and walked into the silent church. The first weeks were the hardest. On Sunday mornings, only a handful of parishioners attended Massachusetts. They sat stiffly, arms crossed, eyes lowered. They listened but not with their hearts, only with the polite distance of people fulfilling an obligation. When Father Michael greeted them after service, most brushed past him. Some offered curt nods. A few didn't acknowledge him at all. He cooked his own meals, cleaned the church alone, walked the village streets with a smile that was rarely returned. But he never complained, never grew bitter, never stopped praying for them. He believed something deeply. Love is patient enough to wait for the right moment to be seen. One icy morning, Mrs. Donnelly, the village's most outspoken critic of the new priest, slipped on her front steps. Her cry echoed through the quiet street. Before anyone else heard it, Father Michael was already running. He helped her up gently, checked her ankle, and stayed with her until the doctor arrived. She tried to protest, embarrassed, but he simply smiled and said, "Let me serve you. It's what I'm here for." She didn't thank him. Not then. But something in her eyes softened. Days later, when Mr. Harris's barn caught fire, Father Michael was the first to grab buckets of water. He worked until his hands blistered, coughing through the smoke, refusing to leave until the flames were out. When young Clara lost her mother to illness, he sat with her through the night. He didn't preach. He didn't try to fix her grief. He simply stayed, a quiet presence in her storm. These acts were small, almost invisible. But kindness has a way of echoing louder than words. It happened slowly, like dawn creeping over the horizon. Mrs. Donnelly began attending Mass again, sitting in the back at first, then gradually moving forward. Mr. Harris started stopping by the church to help with repairs. Clara began lighting candles after school, whispering prayers she had once forgotten. The villagers noticed something they couldn't ignore. Father Michael didn't love them because they welcomed him. He loved them because Christ had welcomed him first. He visited the sick, shared meals with the lonely, listened without judgment, helped without being asked. And little by little the walls around their hearts began to crumble. One night, a fierce storm swept through Glenmore. Trees bent under the wind and the river swelled dangerously. Lightning cracked across the sky like angry fire. In the chaos, a young boy named Liam went missing. The villagers panicked, searching the fields and riverbanks. Hours passed with no sign of him. But Father Michael refused to give up. He walked into the storm, calling Liam's name, his lantern flickering in the wind. He searched the woods, the hills, the narrow paths behind the church. Finally, near the old mill, he found the boy huddled beneath a fallen tree, soaked and shivering. Father Michael wrapped his coat around him, lifted him into his arms, and carried him through the storm back to the village. When he arrived, drenched and exhausted, the villagers rushed toward him. Mrs. Donnelly burst into tears. Liam's mother fell to her knees, sobbing with relief. And in that moment something shifted permanently. They no longer saw him as the priest they didn't want. They saw him as the shepherd who would risk everything for even one lost sheep. The next Sunday the church was full, fuller than it had been in years. The choir sang with renewed joy. Children filled the front pews. Families prayed together, hands intertwined. Father Michael stepped to the pulpit, overwhelmed by the sight. He didn't give a long sermon. He didn't speak of the storm or the rescue. He simply said, "Love is not a feeling. It is a choice, one we make every day. And I choose you. Thank you for choosing me too." The congregation rose in applause, some with tears streaming down their faces. St. Bridget's Parish was alive again, not because of programs or traditions, but because love had been allowed to do what love always does: heal, restore, transform. Years later, people would still speak of Father Michael, the young priest who arrived unwanted, yet became the heart of the village. They would tell stories of his kindness, his patience, his unwavering devotion. They would remember how he taught them that faith is not loud but steady, not forceful but gentle, not demanding but giving. And they would say that Glenmore was never the same after he came, because he reminded them of something they had forgotten. Christ's love is most powerful when it is lived, not spoken. This story carries a truth that echoes far beyond the walls of a small village. Kindness can soften even the hardest heart. Love can rebuild what rejection has broken. A devotion can shine brightest in places where it is unwelcome. And sometimes the greatest sermons are preached without a single word.